And welcome to the campus of Johnson County Community College. It's debate night in Kansas. I'm John Holt, your moderator. We're about a half hour away from beginning that hour of issues and answers from our gubernatorial primary candidates on the Republican side. This is the pre-debate show, and I've got a couple guys who are way smarter than me in analyzing what lies ahead. Fabian Shepard, campaign strategist. Fabian, good to see you.
Good to see you too, John.
And former GOP party chairman, 2 terms worth, Mike Kuckelman. Good to have you on board as well.
Thank you, John. Good to be here.
Let's talk about the headline of the week, and it could have gone either way, it sounded like. Mike, I'll start with you. Ty Masterson is in, so we have 4 candidates on the debate stage.
Right, and I think that Ty Masterson made the right decision in getting into the debate. I think folks here in Johnson County need to hear from Ty. He needs to participate in the debate. So I think ultimately he made the right decision. I'm very pleased he'll be here debating tonight.
Fabian, how about you? This is a statewide debate, so everybody will see it. But that Johnson County, that's an important part of what lies ahead for him, right?
Yes, Johnson County is very important. It's important to Ty, and it's important to all of the candidates. And I don't think it's sound counsel for anybody to skip a debate or a public event at this juncture.
Well, while we're talking about that, one candidate is not on the stage. Vicki Schmidt, who's decided that the latest word we've had is that she won't do any this round. She is considered the moderate. What's her strategy, Fabian, on not taking part?
Well, so Vicki has proven that she can win. She's in the Senate. She won all of her elections by 20 to 30 points. Vicki has a lot of moderate support, which is important in Johnson County. However, with 3 Democrats on the ticket, I'm not sure how much that moderate support will carry over if she does become the nominee.
She has won statewide, too, as the insurance commissioner, so she's shown she can do that. But why not be on the debate stage? Is it the moderate versus conservative thing, and she's hoping the conservatives will divide up the vote and she'll be left standing?
Well, I think that that's what she's hoping for. She's hoping that tonight there are candidates that attack each other, and she's not going to be a part of that. And, she has a history. She has votes that she would have to defend, and if she doesn't need to be here to defend those votes, maybe that's the right path for her, because she has been a popular insurance commissioner. She's done a great job as insurance commissioner, but defending some of her votes with Republicans here in the audience might be a little more difficult for her.
Let's talk a little bit about the Trump factor, because that kind of got lost in the discussion on whether or not Ty Masterson would play ball tonight. How big is that, given the favorability ratings being so low for the president, although he carried the state of Kansas by 16 points?
Yes, that's true. And the president was 100% on his endorsements until recently with Feenstra in Iowa.
Right.
So the president's endorsement, I think it's an important thing, especially in any Republican Party contest that you might enter. However, it didn't really push a lot of people out of the race. We saw one depart, so that's significant.
That one, of course, Jeff Collier, who many viewed as the front runner because of his name ID. He had been lieutenant governor and then governor for about a year, and then he ghosted the Secretary of State's office. Noon came last Monday, and he had not filed.
And I think there were a lot of people surprised that he didn't file. Governor Collier, he's a very popular candidate, and we all saw the ads he was running. I think he was probably counting on having that President Trump endorsement based on the ads that he was running leading up to that. I think he might have been a little surprised by that. But it'll be very interesting to see what he does now since he's not running for governor. I'm sure he's not finished with his public service, and he's very, very well liked and respected in the community.
A lot of speculation that as a consolation prize, the lovely parting gift, so to speak, he may get an opportunity in the Trump administration. Is that real or just speculation at this point?
Well, I mean, it's speculation for all of us, but I would be surprised if he doesn't get something in the Trump administration. I think that the Trump administration has a lot of respect for former Governor Jeff Collier, and I would expect that he would get some kind of an appointment. I'd be shocked if he didn't.
But why not, if you're Jeff Collier, just keep playing those sound bites of the president when he was together, when they were together, he was in town. He's talking about what a great governor he is. I mean, why not just keep playing that? Voters, are they paying that much attention in the summer? They might think that he endorsed Collier.
Yeah, so that's a good point, John. It is early. It's very early in this process. However, as history shows us, Governor Collier did not get the endorsement the previous time when he was in the contest with Chris Kobach. And I think he just had a decision to make, and he made the one that was best for him.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the candidates and the path he faces, or how he'll strategically place himself. He's already started this. We may hear it tonight, and that is Phil Sarnicki, the businessman, who's the anti-establishment candidate. We've heard that a lot along the way so far. Does that card work, Mike?
I don't think that card works. I personally don't like when I hear anti-establishment, because what that means to me is they don't have any experience in government. And sometimes, if you're going to be the governor, you're essentially the CEO of the state. It's nice to have come up through the ranks because you know how to get things done. And I'm not talking just literally about how to get legislation passed, but about when you have a hiccup with the legislative process. Who do you go to? Who do you turn to? So I think that experience is quite important. I think it would be the equivalent in private industry of being critical of a company that promotes someone to be their CEO from within. I don't buy it.
Playing devil's advocate, though, that's what the state needs, he says, is a CEO, a winner. We're going to win because I know how to run businesses. Can't he surround himself with the people who know the legislative process?
Well, again, I think the governor has to be the leader. Yes, surround himself with people who are smart and can do it, and I think that's what he would do. He's obviously a very clever businessman. I just don't know that the anti-establishment label really brings all that many votes. I think it does cause some people to turn away. I mean, I don't like it when I hear that, because I see that as an attack on the party, and if you're going to run as a Republican, you should run as a Republican, not attack our party.
Fabian, I see you nodding.
Yeah, in this case, we've got another outside, and he is an outsider. We've got another outsider in a major contest, and I just don't know how you negotiate the Topeka bubble when you don't have the experience there. And he's pointed to other people who've succeeded, and we've seen it, Kevin Stitt and Bill Lee and those folks. But, there's one stark dichotomy between him and them. They had the Trump endorsement to go with it.
And they're not Kansas. Kansas does not take kindly to statewide office holders that did not come through the ranks, right? We've seen that. Nestor Weigand, the late, great real estate magnate from Wichita, had a great campaign, ended up being a close primary, couldn't get through.
Nestor Weigand, you recall, he was a perfect gentleman. He was a very smart businessman. He was very well liked and respected in the state. And it just shows that it makes it very difficult for an outsider to get through.
We also saw that with the independent Greg Orman in his run against Senator Pat Roberts in a year when Roberts was kind of on the defensive, and it made it an interesting, close race. But at the end of the day, an independent for one, and a businessman who did not have that exposure to being elected fell short.
Right, and Greg Orman had support on both sides of the aisle, too.
The Johnson County factor is a double whammy for him, too, isn't it? The last governor from Johnson County was the late, great Bob Bennett, Prairie Village lawyer. That was at 75, I think. So is that still a problem for these candidates? And we'll talk about the Democrats, because it's going to be a Johnson County nominee. How big of a problem is that if you're a Republican that can no longer carry Johnson County?
Yeah, on the Democrat side of the aisle, the nominee will obviously come from Johnson County, but it is significant that it's been 50 years since the state of Kansas has elected a governor out of the 3rd district, not just Johnson County. And I think that is significant because, I travel the state, and I understand the sentiment outside of Johnson County in the 3rd district. I don't think people are completely aware who live here and don't travel much, what that sentiment is. They don't look upon Johnson County especially favorable, especially in politics.
Having grown up in central Kansas, I can assure you that was the case, and I'm asking, is that still the case now?
I think it is. I mean, I've been working in Kansas, as an attorney for 36 years, and I travel the state frequently for work. I appear in a lot of courtrooms, and I think that sentiment is alive and well today. I think being from Johnson County, you have to win people over, because I think they start in other parts of the state, they start with the negative perception based upon that. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know.
They see us kind of like the country club over here, and they're the workers. They're out there doing what it takes in Kansas.
to take care of Johnson County.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Though Vicki Schmidt, as a moderate, Would she stand a better chance in Johnson County? Because Republican candidates for statewide office or Congress have not fared well in the county of late. They used to. It used to be bright red. Not so much, right?
Vicki did well in the last cycle in her race for insurance commissioner. Vicki got 618,000 votes. She got more votes than Laura Kelly got. So that's significant. And one thing that I would say, if you look at trends, one thing that might work in Vicki's favor is she's in the 2nd district. We've had 3 female governors of the state of Kansas, and guess what district they came from? 2nd district.
She might perform well in Johnson County as a Republican, better than others might because of some of her prior votes and because of where she aligns with her ideology. But this is a big state. You can't focus on one part of this state or one of our congressional districts. You have to be able to pick up a significant part of Johnson County while picking up a lot of the rest of the state. You cannot win this governor's race by focusing on one congressional district and performing well there.
What I've heard said is that there are the big 5 for the Democrats that they focus on, Johnson County being one, Riley County, Douglas County, and so on and so forth. Just close the gap in Johnson County and win elsewhere for a Republican, right? Isn't that kind of the strategy?
I think so. I think, for conservative Republican, you can't count on winning Johnson County, but you can't ignore Johnson County. Again, that's another reason I'm glad that Ty Masterson is here to debate tonight, because you can't ignore Johnson County. You have to pick up votes in Johnson County, as many as you can, and then really focus on the rest of the state. But it would be a mistake to ignore Johnson County as a statewide candidate.
Fabian, you agree?
I agree completely with that.
So we'll see a lot of Ty Masterson in Johnson County, I would assume?
I don't know what plan that team has, but I don't think it would be wise for them to ignore Johnson County.
The good news is he'll be in Johnson County tonight, right here on this stage. Let's talk about Scott Schwab. Secretary of State, he's won statewide. He's from Central Kansas. I have a feeling he'll play up those credentials, even though he lives in Johnson County now. What's his path?
Well, I think Scott's path would be, first of all, he's won statewide office. He's been a popular Secretary of State. He doesn't have a lot of critics. He's done a great job. The Secretary of State's office does more than elections. On the business side, businesses have been complimentary of the practices and procedures of Secretary of State's office. So I think he has that popularity going for him as a statewide. I also think that there's an opportunity here for Scott Schwab, since, if you have Masterson and Sarnecki going at each other, there's an opportunity for Scott Schwab to come right up between them and be the reasonable one of the group. And I think that could be to his benefit.
Are you, and Fabian, you weigh in on this too, are you expecting tonight's debate to be between 2 men who don't apparently like each other much, going at it, and the other 2 kind of in between, trying to get their points made? So if they look diplomatic and not questioning each other, maybe they rise to the occasion with the voter?
Well, I would expect if I were Scott Schwab, that's what I'd be trying to do. I'd want to look like the reasonable diplomatic type that has diplomacy and decorum and can conduct himself in a way that people like to see and respect. And if I were Scott, I'd be hoping that the other 2 really spend a lot of time attacking each other and bringing each other down.
How about you, Fabian?
I expect there to be some fireworks, and I think that description that you just gave suits Scott well. Scott is reasonable. Scott is composed. Most of the time you get straight answers out of Scott Schwab. The previous debate, he had problems with his voice. He was a little bit ill. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he says tonight. I'd like to hear him.
Boy, I'd sure hate to be the moderator. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's talk the Democrats. Ethan Corson, Cindy Holscher, and Kurt Skoog at the buzzer joins the fray. What does the mayor of Overland Park, what does his arrival tell you, Mike?
Well, reading the tea leaves, of course, I don't have any inside information with the Democrats, but reading the tea leaves, I think that means that there must be a group of Democrats who don't think that they can win with Ethan Corson, that he's not the candidate that they were hoping for. And there has been some, confusion within their ranks because remember, David Tolan was the heir apparent, and then all of a sudden David Tolan's not running. And what happened there? And so I kind of like watching this as a Republican, watching from the outside, seeing the disorganization and seeing them going at each other. When Governor Kelly came out and made her statement about Skoog and about his ill-conceived candidacy, et cetera, I thought this is perfect. This is what the Republicans need.
Right on cue. That was a great transition. We have that statement. We'll put it up here. Let me read it through. Her statement basically, a thrown-together, last-minute, opportunistic attempt to divert my wholehearted endorsement and that of others who know, for the sake of our children, our business, and our state, that Ethan Corson must be the next governor of Kansas is foolhardy.
Well, I think that's an ouch to Skoog, but a bigger ouch is I would ask Governor Kelly, what does your endorsement mean when that party went out and found another candidate?
Is it that Ethan Corson just has not connected with people out there on the stump?
Possibly. I saw Ethan as the front runner in this, and then I started hearing reports that Cindy was leading him, and not leading him by a little, but significantly, substantially. So did it surprise me that Kurt Skoog got in? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I just don't know. We previously talked about the last time a governor was elected out of Johnson County, 50 years. And so the Democrats' idea is to run 3 people out of Johnson County. I'm not sure they're really respecting the history of Kansas elections with that.
But they were counting on David Tolan, weren't they?
I don't know. I don't know what they were counting on. I just find it quite interesting that they would have 3 candidates, not just out of the 3rd district, but out of Johnson County.
So as you look at the landscape, I'll ask both of you this question. If you're a Democrat, who outside of Johnson County, and I'm testing your memory here, would be appropriate for a statewide run? Anybody come to mind?
For the Democrats?
For the Democrats.
John, their bench has really been changed over the years, and I think it's been very weak. And I think they had so much focus on David Tolan. I just full well expected David Tolan to be their candidate, and I think that caused a lot of people to take their foot off the accelerator on any other options. And now here they are scrambling at the last minute. And the governor even said that about Skoog, getting in the race, that he's scrambling at the last minute.
I was hearing the same thing, by the way, about the polling.
Yes.
Of course, you don't see the polling, you don't see the questions, is it a push poll for a candidate, whatever, but that Cindy Holscher was starting to pull away from Ethan Corson.
Yes, which surprises me, actually.
Yeah.
But you know what? On this side of the aisle, there are very good, competent candidates, and on the other side of the aisle, they're formidable candidates, and the Republicans aren't going to be able to sleep and think that they're going to just push right through.
Yeah.
It's going to be competitive.
So at the end of the day, whoever emerges from that pack of 3 right now, as we head into the midterm, August primary, A, from Johnson County, B, in Kurt Skoog's case, underfunded. How do you raise money that quickly?
Yeah, and what really surprised me about that whole thing is that Ethan Corson didn't only have Governor Kelly's endorsement, he also had Kathleen Sebelius' endorsement. So you had a former very popular Democrat governor, and then arguably one of the most popular governors in the country right now, Laura Kelly, and the Democrats just basically said those don't mean anything.
Well, I was looking at his fundraising the other day, at Ethan Corson's fundraising, and, he has raised a lot of money, and from lots of parts of Kansas, but also outside of Kansas. I mean, he has some national support. So I'm a little surprised that the Democrats weren't able to coalesce around him better than they have.
Do you think more money's coming in to help him then, or with Laura Kelly's endorsement and her backing?
Well, with her and also with Kathleen Sebelius,
Yeah,
I mean, that is money for a Democrat.
Yeah.
If you have those two in support of you in Kansas, you're going to have a lot of money. But, we're already seeing it. If you go through the campaign finance report, his donors are from all over the country.
Yeah. But that's true anymore.
Ethan
anyway,
raised a lot of money in that Senate race against Dave Danoff. During that cycle, he raised a lot of money.
And that's not unusual anymore, though, to have that outside money coming in, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So
that's actually commonplace now.
We don't have a debate between them scheduled. It's an open invitation. Who do you think emerges from that pack? If you're a betting man right now.
Well, if I were a betting man, I would still bet on Ethan Corson because of the endorsements that he has.
Yeah, it's potentially, that one's going to be tough. You never know what's going to happen in these races, but the momentum really looks like it's in Cindy's favor right now. But I guess with those endorsements and that potential to raise the money to have that financial support, it could be Ethan.
He needs to get Laura Kelly out on the stump, I would think, then. Particularly Johnson County and maybe outstate a little bit, where she is popular.
Yeah. I mean, well, when she ran her campaign, her middle-of-the-road advertising, that was popular with people. There are people who aren't in the weeds where some of us are, and that was very popular to them. They liked that approach, the diplomatic, the statesman-like, out of the turmoil. And she sold it well. I mean, she looked right in the camera and said that she was a middle-of-the-road politician.
Yeah, she did. She took the middle away from Derek in that last race.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit get back to tonight and what we expect from the candidates. Let's just go through each of them. We'll just start with Ty Masterson, who is in the debate. There was some concern he would not be. We were going to have 3 people up here instead of 4. I've said all along, we want Ty Masterson on this stage. I think it's going to be a better conversation. I think it'll be, I don't want to say entertaining, but it'll be interesting to see the strategy. What's his strategy tonight? I'll start with you, Fabian.
I think Ty Masterson is going to need to continue to make the case that he has been making, that he is battle-tested. He's made the argument that he did his job in the Senate this past session, and he's going to continue to have to convince voters that he's the one that's most reliable because he's been there. He's done that. He understands Topeka, and he understands how to govern.
He did his job in the Senate except get property taxes across the line.
Well, and yes, that's true. And Ty would argue that the Senate did its part and the House is the one that didn't get it done.
And that's right. The property taxes, I think that's a big issue all over this state. And I think Ty Masterson's going to have to address that and help voters understand why we don't have the tax relief that was promised. And he has an explanation for it. The issue becomes, it's a long explanation. I mean, we all kind of understand what happened, but it's hard to get people to sit still long enough because they want to hear a soundbite. But I think that he better focus on explaining some of those issues, especially when it comes to property tax. The one thing you hear over and over in this state right now is do something about my property tax. I can't pay more.
And the question is, do you do it on the appraisal side or on the spending side? And that's where they couldn't come together 2 years in a row, the Senate and House.
And I think you have to do both. I have joked that I think on the appraisal side that when they send an appraisal, because I've seen some appraisals that have been just you could tell by looking at it it's wrong. And I've said what we should do is pass a statute that says that appraisal is a binding offer to purchase that real estate for that price, open for 10 days, and that would fix the appraisal process. They would make sure they don't overappraise.
Let's see. We'll move. Let's go to Phil Sarnecki because those are the two. So you have the insider who's been in the Senate and now is president of the Senate and would go back to being president of the Senate, presumably, if he doesn't emerge. Phil Sarnecki's the outsider, anti-establishment. What's his strategy?
Phil's been gaining a lot of support in conservative circles, and conservative factions are starting to rally around him. I think he needs to convince voters that he's the best choice and that he can win a general election. That's what Johnson County Republicans are going to be looking for tonight. Who can win the general election?
Mike, what do you think about Phil? What's he need to do?
I think Sarnecki, his goal should be to come in and convince voters that he is going to take his business expertise, and he's been a very successful businessman, and he is going to transform that into being the governor, and he's going to deliver the same kind of results as a governor as he's delivered in the business community. I think that's what he needs to do.
He doesn't have a record, though, right? A voting record. So you're taking him at his word.
That's the dangerous part, too, is that and that's why the anti-establishment thing always troubles me, because these are untested people. They can stand and tell you about anything, but we don't have a record to cross-examine them with.
Yeah. What about Charlotte O'Hara? She's an interesting sort of outlier here. County Commission has been, her elected office role, and a loner on the commission as a conservative in Johnson County, which 15 years ago would not have been the case. She's in on the stage. What does she do? What role does she play, and how does she differentiate herself?
You know, that's great that we just talked about Philip Sarnecki, because when Philip named his running mate, Joy Akins, Charlotte went right on the attack. She came out and claimed that Philip was claiming to be an outsider, but that Joy was an insider, and then talked about her history on the Chamber of Commerce down there in Wichita and the positions that they held as far as their legislative agenda for things that are not popular with Republican voters.
But she's a school board member when it comes to elected office, right? Joy Akins.
That's true. That's true. Now, Charlotte has had success, but Charlotte's also had major upsets because she lost arguably the most conservative commission district in the county.
Were you surprised she named Michelle Dombrowski, her running mate, another Johnson County who's been on the State Board of Education?
Well, I was, because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, how difficult it is to get elected from Johnson County, and to have your lieutenant governor be also from Johnson County. You have two Johnson County people on the ticket. That's just not a good combination. I think Charlotte overall wants to do things that are positive for our state, but I mean, she has a lot of room to cover in this debate if she is really going to be a contender. I think the position she's in now, I don't see a clear path for.
Is she any kind of a spoiler? Does she pull votes from anybody?
That's always a concern. I mean, those votes that she takes would have gone to somebody. The hard part is, who would they have gone to?
Yeah, that's the concern with having four candidates running, and somebody's going to pull votes from someone.
We talked a little bit about Scott Schwab. What does he need to do tonight?
You know, Scott, I talked about Vicky getting 618,000 votes in the last cycle. Scott got 581,000 votes. Again, more than Governor Kelly did. Scott has been popular in his elections. Scott's won elections time and again, both statewide and for the legislature. I think Scott just needs to convince voters that he is the man that also, like Ty, is battle-tested and can do the job and knows how to govern.
Your thoughts on Scott Schwab, the role he could play tonight and going forward here?
Yeah, I think there's a good opportunity here for Scott Schwab to come in and differentiate himself. I mean, Scott has done a great job as Secretary of State overall. He's been a very popular Secretary of State. He's won statewide office. That's important. I mean, he's going to have name recognition in other parts of the state outside of this 3rd district. And I think that's important, that Scott will have that name recognition. And, I think Scott, when he takes the stage, again, he ought to be statesmanlike, and he ought to be positive, and he ought to deliver meaningful messages about what he would do as governor, because Scott understands how the process works. I mean, he's been in Topeka, he's been in the House, and now as Secretary of State. So I think he can use all of that to demonstrate that he can lead this state.
And he selected another insider as part of his team, the lieutenant governor candidate.
He did. He selected someone from the 1st district, which is refreshing because there would have been an absence of the 1st district otherwise. And that was surprising to me. You asked about the surprises on the Democrat side. On the Republican side, not having a candidate from the 1st district is unusual.
Well, Congressman Mann's holding out for something else, isn't he?
Congressman, Congressman Mann is not in this race.
No, that's right, for sure, and that was my point. All right, as is true tonight, we'll have a chance to close out with our closing argument. We didn't do a draw or anything. Who wants to go first? Closing statement, 30 seconds.
I'll defer to Mike.
Okay, Mike, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I think there's a lot to learn tonight from all of these candidates. I think we are going to see some fireworks between a couple of them, and I'd keep my eye also on Scott Schwab, because I think he's going to take advantage of the fireworks between two of them, Masterson and Sarnecki. I think Scott will capitalize on that. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
All right, I'm jotting that down. We'll be back with you after the debate. And Fabian, your 30-second closing.
I think clearly as a result of the endorsement, Ty Masterson is the one that is in the lead right now. However, I certainly would not discount Scott Schwab, like Mike said. But every single candidate up here is going to be formidable. And I think Philip Sarnecki, with the momentum he's gained in conservative ranks, could make some gains.
All right. Fabian Shepard, Mike Kuckelman, thank you both for the pregame show. We'll have a postgame show as well. and you'll be joining us. We'll get your thoughts about how it went and if your thoughts played out here on the playing field as we're on the stage for tonight's debate night in Kansas. Thank you for joining us here on your streaming apps. The debate is live right here as well as on stations around the state of Kansas. It's debate night in Kansas. I'm John Holt. See you in just a few minutes.
Inflation, tough choices on education funding, and speeding up or slowing down progress in AI development. Which candidate has the answers you are looking for? Tonight, the talking points meet reality, and under the lights, every answer matters. For generations, Kansas has been where the nation's defining debates take center stage. The president has made his pick of the race. Now it's time for you to make yours. Live from Johnson County Community College and from your local election headquarters, this is Debate Night in Kansas.
And hello, welcome to this Republican governor's primary debate live from Johnson County Community College, brought to you by the Republican Party of Kansas and by the Nexstar Media Group. My name's John Holt. I'll be your moderator tonight, leading the conversation with our candidates. Looking forward to it. Honored to be here. We'll be streaming and broadcasting live across the entire state of Kansas, thanks to our affiliates statewide, all 105 counties. Let's get you right to the rules now. Each candidate will get 60 seconds to answer my questions. We'll allow for 30 seconds of follow-ups and up to 30 seconds for any rebuttals. Candidates, when your time is up, you will hear that bell right on time. You'll also get 30 seconds for a closing statement. Now, we did a random card draw, as you know. Prior to the debate, we determined that Scott Schwab will lead us off tonight, and we're going to begin with, well, you say data, I say data centers, as it were. Signs like this have gone up all over the state. This one around Wichita, one of the latest proposed data center locations. Critics concerned about power and water usage. Now, you all support guardrails. You've said that throughout this campaign to protect electric ratepayers and water use, but your approaches are a little different. So, Mr. Schwab, let's start with you. You've said you feel data centers should be under local control. Local was what you said back in February. Explain why it should be under local, not state control, and be specific. 60 seconds.
Sure, and thank you, John. Thank you, Nexstar. Thank you, Johnson County JCCC, and my wife, who normally doesn't come to these things. She says it's often like watching C-SPAN, but she can't change the channel. So I was glad to be with us tonight. The reason why is because what's good for eastern Kansas or south central may not be good for western Kansas. And every time you try to do a monolith policy out of Topeka, it works about as good as when you do a federal monolith policy coming out of DC. It just doesn't work. There are some communities that want data centers and they embrace them. They're not in the news that much. There are some that don't. So if that county commissioner, those city officials, they're duly elected, they can be held accountable for the decisions they make. Now, there are some growing communities in eastern Kansas that they want to put their increase as it relates to their infrastructure and water treatment facilities on the back of big tech, as opposed to raising property taxes. That's a legitimate conversation, but it's not a conversation out of coming to Topeka. That's made by the locals, because otherwise people are not going to like their policy.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab. Mr. Masterson, you're up next. You want to, quote, make sure data centers are not costing the locals another dime in energy costs. That said, would you require them to provide their own power? Then you have 60 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, short answer is absolutely, right? I mean, the overarching battle we have in the world is what I agree with President Trump on. One of the reasons he endorsed me is that we do have this battle with China. You know, a Cold War, a tech Cold War, if you will, in the battle that we can't lose. But ultimately, the decision has to be made at the local level. The final say needs to rest there. There are places they make sense, places they don't, but they should provide for their own power or pay for or in excess their own power. The key is that they have no costs come off on any of the locals in the area. They don't use resources unduly, and you would never allow for eminent domain for a private usage. So as the guardrails are there and the locals want them, we need to participate in the Cold War.
Thank you, Ms. O'Hara. You posted this on X recently. Day one, you would issue a statewide moratorium on data centers. Are you concerned that a moratorium, any kind of delay, would simply send them to other states who would then reap the economic benefits of those centers?
Well, first
60
of all,
seconds.
Thank you. First of all, I want to go back just a little bit. In 2025, our Kansas legislature passed SB 98, which gives data centers 20 years of sales tax exemption. That was actually one of the reasons that we have such a stampede coming into Kansas on these data centers. And then at the local level, due to state statutes, the locals are giving these data centers huge property tax abatements. So the problem is that they're being showered with tax abatements. And every time that you give an abatement, it's going to cost somebody else to provide the services for that structure. And that is you and me. As far as the increase in power, an example is out in Phoenix right now. They just said that they came up with a compromise.
Thank you, but let me just a quick follow-up, if I could. The question was, do you have concerns that they would move to other states where the construction, the jobs, and then the money that they would spend in those states? So is it a permanent moratorium, short-term? And even then, wouldn't developers just move on?
We need to have the moratorium until we get a hold of these tax incentives, because they need to pay their fair share. And go to another state, if they want to hand them out all of these goodies, it isn't going to be good for Kansas.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnicki, you support giving voters in each county the power to decide whether they want a data center. That's part of the plan you recently unveiled. Let me ask you this. With a patchwork of 105 counties, the complexities of what developers might be dealing with, don't you run the risk that these developers will say, we're moving on from here? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you, John. First of all, Charlotte is right. The reason that the data centers are pouring in is because Ty Masterson and the career politicians gave the data centers 20-year tax breaks last year. This is to go along with all the tax breaks they've given to the wind farms and the green energy, et cetera. And so we've come out with a 5-year plan. The technology on this is changing very, very quickly. And our plan, I don't believe the people in Johnson County should tell the people in Lincoln or Goodland whether or not they should have a data center and vice versa. I do think the people locally should decide that. And our plan, which Ty basically just stole and mentioned my plan, which is a no undue burden on water resources, no increase in electricity, no eminent domain. And then if the people of Goodland, Kansas, if they want a data center, then they can absolutely have that data center as long as those parameters are in place. But we need the parameters over that 5-year period of time while this is changing dramatically. Take a look at what NVIDIA just came out with. We're going to have data centers in small rooms in 10 years.
Thank you, sir. The rules allow for a rebuttal. Let's up to 15 seconds, sir, if you want to respond.
I had 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
I would like to have my 30 seconds.
All right, we'll go with 30.
The more I learn about my friend Phil, the more I think he's a Democrat plant. I mean, all you have, well, thank you for bringing that on. All he has are half-truths and lies, and I know why he's angry, because President Trump evaluated this race. It was not a real challenge. He evaluated the race. He completely and totally endorsed me, and he wanted nothing to do with Phil Sarnicki. So I understand why he's angry, but he's actually been funding Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's move.
John,
I'm going to give you 15 seconds here.
15
we got to keep moving.
seconds
Got to
for
keep
all that?
moving. Got to keep moving. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Ty posted something. By the way, my mom's here tonight, so to call me a liar, be very, very careful, because she's not going to like that. And I'm not lying. You can look all of this up. I have made one donation to a Democrat in my life. It was an insurance commissioner 15 years ago for $250. Look it up. By the way, that lie came out the day after I turned Ty down to be his lieutenant governor.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on.
That's when that came out. So notice the timing on that.
Thank you, folks. Nope. We're going to move on now. And folks, remember, your cheering takes time away from our candidates. Let's go to the Chiefs now. We're the Chiefs Kingdom. They're coming across the state line. So we're going to do a little poll here. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. Who supports the Kansas deal with the Chiefs? Raise your hand. All right, we have Mr. Masterson and Mr. Schwab. Ms. O'Hara, Mr. Sarnicki do not. Mr. Masterson, why do you support the deal with the Chiefs? 60 seconds.
It's about the jobs. It's about the jobs, the billions of investment, the hundreds of millions of new tax revenue coming in, because our kids need opportunity. That is, again, why the president endorsed me. He understands we need not just things made in America, we need investment in America, and I want those things in Kansas. We were trucking money out of here to Missouri, and this is a huge opportunity. It's a huge financial gain. And we didn't have to raise a single tax to bring the NFL to Kansas and bring all that excitement, billions in outside investment, not talking about any kind of infrastructure of the stadium, but billions in outside investment coming in, and it's going to be a huge boon. And we want our kids to stay here. We've been exporting our children. We need jobs and opportunity, and that's what this brings.
Quick follow-up, if I may. Talk about jobs, not a single tax being raised, but the Chiefs won't pay property taxes because they don't own the stadium. It's a sports authority. Wyandotte County and Johnson County, some of the highest property taxes in the state. How's that a good deal if property taxes here are still high? We'll talk about those in a moment. 30 seconds.
Sure, and it's hundreds of millions in income tax off the NFL. And there's going to be millions in property tax paid in all the ancillary development. Look at the Kansas Speedway. That 1,200 acres paid almost nothing 30 years ago. Now that same 1,200 acres throws off $30 million in property tax and $1 billion in taxable sales. The problem they don't have when they're not getting property tax relief is you have a local government that won't do it. The money is there.
Ms. O'Hara, you did not raise your hand. Please explain why. You have 60 seconds.
Right. So I have been against this from the very beginning when we passed the legislation. That was in 2024 when we had special session, and that was supposed to be on property taxes, and then it was all about giving professional sports teams these sweetheart deals. It doesn't work. We've been trying this for 40 years. And it doesn't matter whether it's the Chiefs or if it's Panasonic or if it's Sinano, a Chinese company. It doesn't matter. It doesn't work. It was supposed to broaden the tax base and then lower taxes for everyone. 40 years. We passed this in 1986. Has anybody seen their property taxes or other taxes go down? I don't think so. It doesn't work. It's a false narrative. And post-legislative audit shows that at least 70% of these companies would be here anyway. I mean, we gave $154,000 to Fiserv to come into Sprint Center. They lost 70% of their value in the last 12 months.
Let me do a quick follow-up, if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
And it relates to some of what Mr. Masterson said. There are only 3 teams right now in the NFL where the owners built the stadiums. That's just the way it's done in the NFL. You have a team competing, 2 states, Kansas and Missouri, jobs, $1 billion. The Chiefs say they provide the economy. Did the state really get a bad deal at the end of the day when the Chiefs are paying 40%? 30 seconds to respond.
Absolutely, this is a bad deal. We're going to own a stadium that we're getting $7 million a year that goes into the maintenance of that stadium. We're getting nothing. We're getting nothing out of that stadium, and we're going to have to be responsible for it. There's no property taxes coming to the state from that stadium. The deal was way too sweet. I mean, you read articles all across the United States. It's the sweetest deal that's been given to any sports team in the United States.
Thank you, Ms. O'Hara. Mr. Sarnicki, you didn't raise your hand either. 60 seconds to explain why.
Yeah, it's not that I'm against the Chiefs coming here. It is the timing of the deal, and it's definitely not the deal that I would have made. I think this is what happens when you get career politicians negotiating business deals for the first time in their lives, and it's the largest business deals in the history of the state. Our economy, CNBC last year ranked our economy as a state 48th, and they gave us an F. Moody's said we're already in a recession. And this deal that's happening here, here's one of the things that Ty and Laura did together in the Career Politicians. They gave themselves, with our economy where it is, highest income tax in the entire region, property tax is totally out of control, as everybody knows. They gave themselves a luxury suite paid for by all of you, the taxpayers. And I just think that is tone deaf to what's going on out there right now. And it's not, now, here's the reality. We have the deal is done, and my question would be, to make this deal try to work, do you want a business person doing it, or do you want a career politician doing it?
Let me ask you this, though, and it's a follow-up to pretty much what I had from Ms. O'Hara, and that's just the way business is done in the NFL. 29 teams have public-private partnerships, and the Chiefs, $1 billion a year in economic benefits. In the long run, it's a bad deal for Kansas? 30 seconds.
Well, I think it remains to be seen, but the problem is where our economy is right now, where our property taxes are right now, where our income tax is right now. The largest deal ever done in the history of sports stadiums was $1.2 billion by the Tennessee Titans. Our state's giving the Chiefs about $3 billion to do this deal. Now, again, I think that the Missouri had about $1.4 billion on the table. I just think we could have done a lot better in negotiating the deal, and we didn't negotiate a good deal.
Mr. Masterson, 15 seconds. I got to keep moving here on the career politician.
My mother taught me a half-truth was a complete lie, and that is what you're hearing tonight. And even the president knows that you directed a PAC that directed hundreds of thousands of dollars to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and others.
Thank
so
you.
the buck stops somewhere.
Let's focus on the topic at hand, Chiefs.
That was entertaining.
Mr. Schwab, you did raise your hand.
I did.
Explain, 60 seconds.
So let's talk. So when you're saying they're giving the Chiefs this money, that's not true. There's no upfront cost. This is much like what we started with the racetrack. And if you look at what's going out by the Legends out in Wyandotte County, it was an absolute win. And the NFL's a better investment than NASCAR. There's no question about that. And we didn't take anybody's land away from them in this deal. This was a private transaction with a public-private partnership. What you have is in that area, we get no sales tax because it's grass. Clark Hunt, I respect him a lot. I've known him for years. When you put a stadium there, he's putting in 25% of the retail around it. That's tax revenue you're not getting today. So to say we're giving it to him, we're not getting it now anyway, but we'll get all the jobs. And Wyandotte County and KCK needs jobs. Kansas needs jobs. And if you want to get out of a perceived recession in the state of Kansas, you have to make investments in deals like this. And this costs us no SGF. Nobody's taxes are going up.
Follow up, if I may, we're also not going to get property taxes from the Chiefs for the headquarters or the stadium. Was that a bad deal? 30 seconds.
All the retail around it, you get the property tax, and it's being reclassified from ag, which is a very low rate, to commercial. So it's going to help those communities overcome. They're not getting much tax revenue, property tax revenue right now because it's just ag. Ag doesn't pay as much in property taxes in the metro areas as commercial does.
Perfect transition to property taxes. I promised we'd talk about it. You all agree they're too high. The legislature, last couple of sessions with supermajorities, failing to pass a property tax relief law. The big sticking points, of course, home appraisals, spending. So we have a multiple choice question for you tonight. It should be on the screen in front of you there. Would you cap county appraisal increases, give voters the power to block spending increases, do both or neither, and why? Ms. O'Hara, you're up first. 60 seconds, please.
Thank you very much. Well, again, we need to go back to 1986 because this is when we passed reclassification and equalization, which brought us annual property tax reappraisal. And at the same time, we passed the economic development. There's two things that's happening. There are so many properties that have been abated and that are out of the tax base that basically we have all these holes in the boat and we are losing a lot of money. An example, 2024 in Johnson County, just on industrial revenue bonds and tax increment finance districts, it cost the public coffers $108 million in 1 year. And it's gone up astronomically since then. So we got to stop giving these tax abatements because it doesn't work. Like I said, we've given it 40 years. It just flat doesn't work. But I would go.
15 seconds to explain.
Okay.
Based on our multiple choice quiz here, what would you do?
I would do neither. I would abolish the property tax. I would go with Senator Murphy's abolish the property tax and have a use tax because our property tax system is broken. I don't know how to fix it.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnicki, would you cap appraisal increases, give voters the power to block local spending, do both or neither? 60 seconds.
Well, let's be clear. First of all, as I go around the state, whether Lincoln, Goodland, Wamego, Pratt, Johnson County, Sedgwick County, it doesn't matter. This is the number one issue and the number one concern for people. I've talked to so many people, ladies and people that have had to sell their homes because of their property tax increases. And for 3 straight years, Ty Masterson and the career politicians have promised property tax relief. They said it's a top issue. We're going to get property tax relief done. For 3 straight years, they've done that. And for 3 straight years, how much property tax to the people at home have you received? How much property tax relief? That's right, none. However, green energy, wind farms, Panasonic, foreign companies, they've all gotten property tax relief. So there's property tax relief to be found, just not for the people of the state of Kansas. Do you know why that is? That is because of a lobbyist and the special interest that have tie in their back pocket. And by the way, I would do both, because you can't just do the appraisal, because you still have a problem and you have to cap the mill levy side as well. Otherwise,
I'm
they
going
just
to
raise
give
the mill levy.
Mr. Masterson 30 seconds to respond.
Can I have my whole full minute to answer the question?
No,
and
30.
respond, or just...
We'll come back to you on that. Yes.
Gotcha. Right. So, quick response is we didn't fail. The Senate performed, and that's also why Trump endorsed me and sent me a letter telling us that our leadership is what positioned Kansas as a model state in the nation to implement conservative values. That was in the letter from the White House, because we passed multiple times through the Senate. By the way, we'll get to the question, both, right? You have to stop it because we are taxing on unrealized gains. We didn't fail, we succeeded. A small group of Republicans, phony Republicans, they sided with the Democrats and stopped it in the House.
All right, we'll come back to you. Let's go to Mr. Schwab. Would you cap spending, appraisals, neither or both?
I would
60
do B.
seconds.
I do B. You do not want a static cap in the appraisals. It's anti-free market. It's going to hurt real estate development and opportunities to grow our economy. And that's in my BALD plan, which is better affordable living by decreasing property taxes. It was the first one to come out with a written detailed plan with 9 points, and 3 points were introduced in the legislature this year. But part of that is it relates to every time they say they want to raise the mill levy, let the people in that jurisdiction vote on it. It gives protection for those people who voted for it. If it passes, clearly they are okay with their property taxes going up. If it fails, then you're going to have to rein in spending. It's a win-win for those local units of government and the voters. And other portions with property taxes, our valuation system's completely jacked up. There's no accountability. If you sell your property for less than the evaluation, where's your property tax or your property tax refund? You should get one. And that's my BALD plan. If you go to scottschwab.com, you'll see more about our answers for property tax.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Masterson, now to the question. Do you cap those appraisals, allow voters to block spending, neither or both? 60 seconds.
All the above. You have to do both. You have to stop on the front and in the back. When you don't cap, whether it's the assessed value or the appraisal, you're taxing somebody on an unrealized gain. Had a neighbor across the street from me told me he's paying double in his property taxes alone what he had been for his mortgage, his interest, his insurance, and taxes combined when he paid his house off, not to mention insurance cost going through the roof. But you have a guy that was being literally taxed out of his house. And on the other end of that scale, you have my wife and I have 6 children, adult children, all choosing to spend their lives here in Kansas. So we have vested interest in solving this problem. And they're having trouble affording a home. First-time home buyer age just crested 40. Property tax is something that has to be tackled, cannot be ignored, and you have to have a front door on the appraisals or the assessed value, and you also have to have the voters stop outrageous spending.
Let's stay on the topic of taxes, but reverse it now to spending. So we'll keep the same order here. The state is now on track to spend more than it collects in revenue over the next 2 fiscal years, more than $1 billion by my math, which isn't always great, but I've come up with that. Partly because of tax cuts and increased spending. You're all talking tax cuts here, so what are we going to target to get spending under control? Ms. O'Hara, you'll start us off again, 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, this ties into education. Everyone knows that our schools are absolutely in a spiral downward, and what are we going to do? And what I would do on that is I would close the State Department of Education, which costs $30 million a year for paper shufflers, but then we have to stop taking federal funds, and then that would stop the federalization of our education, and then put that to the decision of the local districts as to what the curriculum is going to be. That's $300 million. And then SB 254, which unfortunately passed but was vetoed by the governor and unfortunately was not even brought up for a vote for a veto override, is SB 254, which bans any public money going to illegal aliens, which would have saved us $600 million. Then audits on SNAP and Medicaid, those are the favorite places for the scammers. We have got to block the holes where we're absolutely losing money.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnicki, what spending would you target to bring the budget back in balance? 60 seconds.
Yeah, well, let's be clear. We have a $26 billion budget in the state of Kansas, and under Ty's leadership in the last 7 years, $10.5 billion has been added to that $26 billion in spending as he's presided over a supermajority. Ty loves to spend your money. In 2015, he signed off on Sam Brownback's budget, which blew a $900 million hole in the budget of the state of Kansas. He also got steamrolled by Laura Kelly on her budget, signed off on this year, and as you said, we've already had 4 straight months where we've had more spending than we're bringing in revenue. We're running a deficit for 4 straight months in a row. We will audit. One of the things I will do as governor, I will come in and audit every single department and agency with an outside auditor. I know the people that do it. We've already talked to somebody in New Jersey who's done 2 states, and we're gonna get out the waste, fraud, and abuse, and it's about $2.5 to $4 billion out of that $26 billion budget is what we believe.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? A quick follow-up here that you would cut without auditing. What would you focus on right now?
Yeah,
15 seconds.
Well, you have to go in and audit it first. You have to do some fact finding to know exactly where and how much that you would cut. But mostly, there's a lot of waste in our department. Exactly.
Hold on.
It's a good one.
Thought. I'm going to give.
Yes.
I've got to keep this moving. 15 seconds to respond, Mr. Master.
I appreciate he's a bit of an angry elf and giving me more time, but I'm not going to wallow in the mud with that because I know he's just angry because I got the endorsement. They want nothing to do with him. He's all hat, no cattle.
Those are votes, not mud.
Thank you, sir.
Votes.
Let's
that is
get-
a record.
Thank-
Your record says you are what your record says you are. Those are votes, folks.
Thank you both. Let's get down to Mr. Schwab. All right, 60 seconds.
I don't want to be governor. I want to do governor and reflect the Kansas values we have by creating consensus. Well, I've done this in my office. When I came into office, I had an outdated computer system. As a result of migrating off it, and I didn't ask for any tax money for it, I lowered fees because we took our annual fees to biennial fees and cut our fees in half because we doing half the work. We're in technology debt in the state of Kansas. And yes, K through 12 is a big sector. I wouldn't say don't take federal money because that's just going to increase costs on Kansas and send more of their dollars to DC where it should be here in our communities. But we are in technology debt. We hand paper from building to building. It's not online. I brought the rules and reg process online because the governor didn't want to do it. And it's saving the state $5 million a year. We aren't even good enough technology-wise for today. And we have more technology than we've ever had in the history of this planet, and we're not using it, and it's costing us money.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Masterson, you said in the Wichita debate, we're going to continue to ratchet down in terms of taxes. That was in January. So what spending would you target in order to get things back in alignment with our budget? 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. And we've been doing that. I have a record of making that work, making the budgets work. And by the way, we passed $1 billion in tax cuts. I don't know if everybody caught that in your preference to the question. Part of that deficit is you're cutting taxes. And you have to do that in government because what I've learned in my time there is you have to choke government because even good people want to spend on certain things. So you have to keep cutting taxes. That forces the pressure down. It forces you to cut spending. And we will continue on that path when I'm governor.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on to the topic of abortion. As you know, the Kansans voted to keep abortion legal with the 2022 vote. A woman can get an abortion up to 22 weeks with an exception for life and the health of a mother. The number of abortions performed in the state has gone from 7,800 in 2021 to more than 19,000 last year. 75% of them from out of state, making this a regional hub. Now, I know you're all pro-life, and I know you're all concerned about the election of judges, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. So I want you to confine your answer to this. Given the current status of the court, strict scrutiny, what specific policies would you pursue to limit the number of abortions in this state that would stand up to the Kansas Supreme Court? Mr. Sarnicki, you're up first, 60 seconds.
Well, Heidi and I have been, huge supporters of the pro-life movement for a long, long time, both financially and in our time as well. And I just think it's something that needs to be approached with care and compassion. But the Supreme Court is a massive issue. And I encourage everybody that this is how we used to elect judges, Supreme Court justices in the state of Kansas. And that constitutional amendment that's on the ballot this fall, we need to go and we need to vote for that constitutional amendment so that we will then know the people that are on the Supreme Court. We have, with our current system, not to get into it, because you said we'd get into it in a minute, we have 6 liberals, we have 1 conservative, and that system needs to be changed because nobody typically even knows who those judges are or who they're voting for. And so that is where the whole thing starts with this issue, and we have to fix that in the fall.
Again, I asked, what policies would you propose right now, though, that would pass muster with that court, which is going to be in place for a while? 15 seconds if you have some thoughts.
Well, I don't think anything's going to pass muster with this court. That's my whole point. We've got 6 liberals and 1 conservative, and until we change that, nothing's going to pass muster. But what I will say is anything that will reduce the number of abortions, we are estimated by 2030 that we will have more abortions than live births in the state of Kansas.
Thank you, sir.
So
Mr.
anything
Schwab,
we can reduce that, I will sign as governor.
Appreciate that. Mr. Schwab, what policies would you try to pass or support in the legislature, sign when it came across your desk, that would pass muster with the court? 60 seconds.
Yeah, well, on the front side, you can do a lot for our crisis pregnancy centers. For some reason, this governor is militant against that, and I don't understand the lack of compassion for mothers that do want to keep their children and giving them access to health care so they can have a child. And 2, you keep on going after the court because they're just going to be what the court is, but you keep on putting it on their desk and making them make their decisions. I would reinforce our reintroduce the 3rd trimester abortion ban. I'd also make sure we introduce a partial birth abortion ban and make sure that we're constantly going at the court. Even though they're not going to like us, we're equal co-branches of government, and we keep answering these things. That way we can reduce the number of abortions in our state. I've lost a child. Every time there's an abortion, a child dies. And that hurts the person who's the parent. I don't care what you say. It does. It hurts. And we have to continue to let the court know that the people of Kansas, that vote in 22 was not about yes or no on abortion. It was whether or not they liked that language.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Masterson, what policies would you support and want to sign if they come across your desk? 60 seconds.
Yeah, we will continue to be shrewd in the environment we're in. We've passed a host of life-affirming laws. My record on life is a mile long. It's why I'm the solely endorsed candidate by KFL. And why they will be out working on our behalf. And we will continue. The things that we can do, whittling around the edges to save as many lives as we can, are around parental consent, informed consent, counseling, funding pregnancy crisis centers, getting more information to the women that are hurting so they'll make a different decision.
Ms. O'Harris, what policies would you want to sign as governor that would stand up to the court in reducing the number of abortions in the state? 60 seconds.
Well, I agree with Mr. Sarnecki that actually we are very limited because of the makeup of the court. But crisis pregnancy centers, that is a light in Kansas. But in 2024, that number of abortions was 19,811 lives lost. It is absolutely unconscionable that this has happened in our state. And as we look back in our history, the Hody decision in 2019, our court found in our Constitution that was written in 1859 and brought in with us as a state in 1861, found the right of abortion in Section 1 of our Bill of Rights under life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How twisted is that? But yes, we need to focus on crisis pregnancy centers, make sure that we're giving mothers and fathers the information that there is help.
Thank you. Let's move on to affordability. That's the buzzword of these midterms coming up. The average price of gasoline right now in Kansas, about $4. Diesel fuel, about $5, which of course farmers rely heavily on. At 25-cent per gallon, roughly, fuel tax. Would you support a fuel tax holiday? Mr. Schwab, we'll start with you, 60 seconds.
I would sign it, but I wouldn't be a huge pusher because one holiday doesn't give that people that much of a break. What we have to do is make government more affordable. Right now, the gallonage tax on gas is too high. If you're going to cut it, you need to have a true static cut on gallonage and not just for one day where people are going to go fill up their tank. My concern is my son's here with his fiance, and they're in a pickle. They're both going to be self-employed, which is the American dream, but now they're struggling to get into a house or an apartment because they don't have 2 years of proven income. Affordability is not just gas. It's making housing affordable, and that's going to be by reducing property taxes and giving more access to really focusing on some of our rural communities that have contracted and bring small manufacturing jobs so that those folks can have a reason to build houses in some of these rural communities and smaller communities.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Masterson, would you support a gas tax holiday? 60 seconds.
So that in and of itself, I don't know is that, but gas prices, I mean, if you want permanent high gas prices and you want high unaffordability, vote for the Democrats. They're the party of permanent high prices in gas. They hate energy, and they're the party of fraud, party of open borders. What we have to do, affordability is multiple things, and I will be the most oil and gas friendly governor the state has ever seen, and ethanol. As we open markets for ethanol for our producers and our farmers out there, it lowers the cost of fuel, which goes to affordability. We have to go for property tax for affordability. We have to go after insurance rates for affordability. We have to go after regulations for affordability. There's a lot of cost that goes into a house that's not time and material, and we have to restore the ability of our children to be able to afford homes. It's the underpinning of the middle class in America.
So to be clear, you would or would not support a gas tax holiday?
If it was sent to me, I'd sign it, absolutely.
Right. Thank you, sir. Ms. O'Hara, are you in favor of a fuel tax holiday? 60 seconds.
No, I'm not in favor of that. Everyone knows that the reason for the high gas prices and the diesel fuel, and that wouldn't help the farmers because farmers don't pay the road tax on their diesel fuel that they use in the fields. So basically, this is a problem with the Iran war, and until we get that solved, gas prices isn't going to come down. That's really out of our control. But I agree with Mr. Masterson that the rules and regulations on houses, both of us are from the construction industry, and what has been required under the codes has been astronomical in the last 15 years, and we need to go back and take a look and have some common sense about what we require in our building codes. And affordability is a very multi-level issue, and putting a Band-Aid of a 25-cent tax holiday is not the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Sarnecki. Fuel tax holiday, yes or no? 60 seconds.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, but the problem is it's just nibbling around the edges at the real problem. And I might look at a very short gas holiday, but the real issue is we have the 6th most expensive state in the country to raise a child. Think about that. Kansas, the 6th most expensive state in the country to raise a child. We have the highest income tax of every single state in our region. We have the 2nd highest corporate tax of every single state in our region. And I'm pretty sure the people at home out there listening, the people here tonight, know exactly where our property taxes are. We are 50% higher than the states around us if you average them out. We are not growing our population. We are 42nd per capita in new business startups. We are not starting enough new businesses. And to make matters worse, we are 48th in 5-year new business survival rate. We are overtaxing, overspending, and overregulating the citizens of Kansas to death. And that is the real problem with affordability. It's not, yes, gas prices are a challenge right now, no question, but we have bigger issues than just the gas prices.
Quick point of information here. You said income taxes. Are you looking to cut income taxes as well as property taxes? 15 seconds.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can cut, if you cut spending, which we can't do, unfortunately, $10.5 billion to a now $26 billion budget in the last 7 years. $10.5 billion added to a $26 billion budget in the last 7 years. If you audit and get out the waste and fraud, if you reduce the spending, you can absolutely cut the taxes, and we have to, or we won't be competitive with the states around us.
Appreciate that. Let's move on to what gets funded by the gas tax, and that's Transportation. It's a 10-year transportation plan that would come up under your watch as governor. What would you prioritize in that next 10 years for transportation in our state? Mr. Masterson, we'll start with you. 60 seconds.
Sure. I mean, and I supported the last 10-year plan and the flexibility that was in it. You have to be somewhat dynamic as our economy grows and where product moves and where people move, as we have all the, and I want all this infrastructure to come to Kansas and hope we have the added resources to improve our roads. You have to focus where the people are moving and where the product is moving, and that 10-year plan will have to adapt to those needs.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara, same question for you. What would your priorities be in a new 10-year plan? 60 seconds.
Well, I think that our 69 highway toll project is probably the worst boondoggle that we have had in decades. The most endangered species in Johnson County is a human using the toll lane. They're not using it. And then, so we spent how many hundreds of millions of dollars on this unbelievable project with 3 flyovers at 123rd Street. And then I drive out to Garden City, I-70, Highway 83 South. There's not one passing lane. There's not one turn lane. There's semis all over the place. The misallocation of money in KDOT is breathtaking. I mean, all we have to do is look in our own backyard. We have sound walls. It's ridiculous what we did. And the design on it is unbelievably horrible.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnicki, what priorities would you have in your next 10-year transportation plan under your watch?
I did
60
use that.
seconds.
I did use that once. There was a lot of traffic, and so I went around.
You were one of them.
Yeah, I was the one. And I will say, by the way, it was lovely. There was nobody there. I mean, it was really nice, you know. But you know, there are not a lot of people using it. To Charlotte's point, I'm not a big fan of government spending for sure, and I'm not a big fan of government bloat. And believe me, we have a ton of it in the Kansas budget right now. But I do believe transportation is part of the job of government, and so we'll take a really good look at the plan as we get it, and we'll go through it and make sure that it's efficient. You know, I believe that I'm far and away best positioned of anybody up here as a business leader and a CEO for the last 30 years to do that, and we'll evaluate it and we'll make sure that we come up with a good plan to present to the people of the state of Kansas.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schwab, same question. Priority in our next 10-year transportation plan. 60 seconds.
As a kid that grew up in Great Bend, and I go back to my small town, it gets smaller. Our rural communities need good roads. And right now we need to define in statute what a shoulder is, and any highway 50 or above needs to be shouldered. Cars are going faster, they're lighter, and you need an escape route to protect our young drivers. 2, we need to finish Highway 50 going east out of Liberal. That needs to be accomplished. And then you need to start focusing on a north-south 4-lane corridor going from Liberal all the way up to I-70 so that those rural farmers and ag can get their products to market faster down in Texas. I can lower your production costs a little bit, but if I can lower your transportation costs, people are going to want to come to Kansas. And we're in the center of the highway grid with I-35, I-70, 135. We have an opportunity to help our western Kansas communities become veins along those highways. And right now, for the past 20 years, we just haven't done that.
Thank you, sir. Let's move to education now, certainly on everybody's mind, but with a twist here. Kansas Department of Education says more than half of Kansas public school districts have less than 500 enrolled in them. Ms. O'Hara, we're going to start with you. What's your stance on consolidating school districts across the state, primarily rural, to save money? 60 seconds.
Well, I'm the only person up here on the stage that has a rural background. I was raised on a farm in Bourbon County, and we went through consolidation. I think that was in the 60s. And being in small towns, and it was like a war zone, because if you got to keep your school, then that was the economic center of those small towns. Because over the last 50 years, the population has left. Instead of 400-acre farms, they're 4,000-acre farms now. So the population just isn't there. But what we need to do is that administration, absolutely. In my small town of Uniontown, We had a principal at the high school, principal at the grade school, and then the head shed out west of the high school, there was a superintendent. The graduating classes were 35. There are 35 students in the graduating classes. It's ridiculous, and that same thing happens. We have to get rid of the excess administration cost.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnicki, school districts, consolidation, is it time to get serious about that? 60 seconds.
Well, first of all, be careful, Charlotte, because I grew up in a town, maybe 1,000 people on a good day, and I grew up walking beans. So, I'm very familiar with rural America. But we have 286 school districts in the state of Kansas. Do you know how many Florida has with 21 million more people than we do? 67. Utah's the same size as us. They have 41 school districts. Our schools, we have a bigger issue too, because our schools are failing. This is another failure of leadership of the career politicians in Topeka. We lead the nation in ACT test score declines. We lead the nation. One of the reasons I brought Joy on, as many, because she's super successful as a CEO in her own right, but one of the reasons I brought her on is to be an education czar, because she was on the Wichita School Board for 10 years, the only conservative. She was yelled at, she was threatened, and we have to do transformational change for education in our state. Over 70% of our kids in fourth grade can't read or do math at a fourth grade level.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schwab, time to get serious about consolidating school districts. 60 seconds.
And again, I grew up in Great Bend by a horse ranch, and I also walked beans and alfalfa. But anyway, all that being said, is it's with the formula and where we're at. What I would propose is by a year, you'd say 2035, you say every school district will be at this threshold of population. If you're not, then you're going to have to merge with the school district next to you. And if you don't, the state school board is going to merge you for you. And that's not closing the school. What you're doing is you're eliminating a lot of superintendents, that they protect their turf. They don't want that to happen. But if we did our school districts by population like we do the legislature on congressional seats, Johnson County would have over 100 school districts. That makes no sense. We have too many school districts. We can consolidate, and that would save money just on combining healthcare costs, administrative costs, and also deliverables like your paper contract, your copy contract, your computer costs, because you're spreading that out over a wider base.
Mr. Masterson, should smaller districts be consolidated in rural areas? 60 seconds.
Oh, I don't know that the way you asked that, but President Trump endorsed me to lead on tough issues. Thank you for that. And so that is what this is. The problem with schools isn't necessarily the size of it. We have lots of other problems in education. The problem, our parents need freedom to choose. Our kid needs access to world-class education. We have the ability to do that. And we have the problem, we have perverse incentive inside our education system to incentivize good teachers to become administrators at the end of the career. And it's not a bad choice for them financially, because that's the way the system's set up. I'd love to see the highest paid person in the building be the best teacher. So that's what people wanted to be. We can do other things that improve our education. I don't know that consolidation is the answer unless the local community wants to do that, because those schools are the lifeblood, and those schools will see the resources they need.
Quick follow-up. If you do consolidate and have fewer of those administrators you just talked about, don't you have more money for classrooms? 15 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if taking care of an administrative bloat is as long as you're not damaging the local community, that's absolutely a concern. That's even a bigger concern like Wichita, which part of my district's in Wichita, where you have an entire administrative building.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on to medical marijuana. The Trump administration recently reclassified it more like a prescription medicine. Does that new classification, plus the chance to add to our revenue stream by taxing it, change your mind about your support of medical marijuana in Kansas? Mr. Sarnicki, we'll start with you. We're going to cut to 30 seconds for your answer here so we can keep moving on. 30 seconds.
No, it would not. The THC content in marijuana in the 1970s was about 3 to 4%. Today, it's around 30%, and some of the vaping products that are used, it's like 90%. These are causing hallucinations, they're causing schizophrenia, they're causing anxiety, and if you go to Oklahoma or you go to Colorado, and I've watched interviews with the police, I've watched interviews with legislators, and they are very, very sorry that they did this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schwab, 30 seconds.
No, especially if it's not FDA approved. First off, I've never met somebody who did marijuana on a regular basis and suddenly got smarter. It doesn't happen. And two, it's really incumbent that we make sure that we have a rapid THC test first for people on our highways. They could be stoned and we don't know because we'd have to do a blood draw to find out if they're high. You can't do a breathalyzer test. And I don't understand, and we're not going to tax it because we don't tax healthcare in Kansas, and I don't think we should be taxing healthcare in Kansas. That's just going to drive up the cost of healthcare.
Mr. Masterson, 30 seconds here again, same question, medicinal marijuana.
Yeah, short answer is no, that didn't change anything. I am supportive of the research on it because I think the research is going to show you just how dangerous it is and has become. If you look across this nation, there's so many states that have, medical marijuana that for all intents and purposes is recreational. And the money that it's bringing in is not covering the social costs that's happening to those states. So the short answer is no.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara, same question to you. 30 seconds.
No, and I sit across the table from this on a weekly basis when I go into the Juvenile Detention Center for the Bible study with Ron Stiles. I see these kids coming in that had terrible drug problems. And legalizing medical marijuana is extremely dangerous because it causes schizophrenia. And in fact, one of my friends had a son who was hooked on marijuana, became schizophrenic, and killed himself. It's just absolutely
Thank you.
no.
Let's move to Supreme Court justices. I promised I would. True to my promise, as you know, voters will decide whether to elect them in August. Here's my question for all of you. We'll start with you, Mr. Schwab. It'll be up to the legislature to implement it. So how do they do so, and what would you support? By districts, statewide, partisan, bipartisan? 30 seconds.
I would do districts. That way you get a representation from across the state. You don't want to have 7 justices from one apartment building in one county that don't understand the issues of out west, Wichita, or other areas. But they do need to be partisan. The party system we have is to let folks know where they generally believe. And right now, we don't have that with our Supreme Court. And anybody who's scared about it, one of the best jurists we have in Kansas is Judge Gehring down in Wichita. And he's elected. And nobody's complaining. All the fear-mongering that's going on doesn't happen.
Mr. Masterson, how would you enable or actually put it in place? 30 seconds to
That'll
answer.
be a robust conversation. I'm going to support whatever gives the people of Kansas the biggest voice in that branch. That is the problem. We have a court that does not reflect the Kansas people's values, period. Everything's done in the back. I bet most of this room doesn't even know we've had judges that have resigned and replaced in the last 12 months. And this is an informed crowd. And nobody knows anything about them. One's an attorney, never been a judge before, and they just nominated another person that had failed confirmation in the Senate twice. So you are not seeing a court that reflects the will of the Kansas people, and that's what I will support.
Ms. O'Hara, 30 seconds. What would you support in terms of putting this amendment in place?
I would support statewide for all of them, because any person that, if they have to go before the state Supreme Court, they should know that they have the opportunity to participate in the election of that judge. With Western Kansas being so sparsely populated, we need to make sure that their voice is heard in every one of the election of these 7 justices. And yes, the Kansas Bar Association has had a stranglehold as to who serves on our Supreme Court. We have 6 liberals on our 7 judges. We have only 1 conservative.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnecki, how would you implement the law, or the amendment?
Well, first of all, I'd like to remind everybody that since our founding as a state in the 1860s through last century, when we changed this, for years and years, we elected our Supreme Court justices. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is what we did for a long, long time. And I've actually been looking at this. I think I would probably go with the districts, but I'm still kind of looking at it. But I would absolutely make it partisan. Absolutely. People need to know if they're electing a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or whomever it may be, that letter needs to be at the end of the name when they're voting.
All right, we're gonna tuition next. Let's talk about tuition then. As you know, the Senate, or I should say the legislature, failed to override a bill that the governor vetoed, which of course bans state tuition for undocumented workers. So the question is, would you support that or would you support providing tuition in-state for those undocumented? Mr. Masterson, 15 seconds. I want to keep moving.
I don't support any public benefit going to anybody here present illegally, period.
Ms. O'Hara, yes or no? Yes or no?
That was SB 254.
Yes or no?
And absolutely, it is for tuition and for all public
Yes
benefits.
or no? I need to know.
And I supported that SB 254, so no money going to illegal
Mr. Sarney.
aliens.
No. Mr. Schwab.
No in-state tuition if you're undocumented. No, I've consistently voted for that when I was in the legislature.
All right. We have come to the end of our questions. Thank you for your honest. Let's go ahead and do a quick lightning round. If we could. Oh, all right, we're going to go straight to closing. We're up. You guys spent a lot of time talking tonight, so let's go to closing.
Fast lightning round.
You guys were great. Want to remind you that you can catch our live streaming post-show. Just hit that QR code on your screen, and it'll take you right to when we're done here. Each candidate will have 30 seconds. We did a draw. It was random. Mr. Schwab, you'll go first.
Sure. The reason why I'm running for governor is because I've done it. I've never lost statewide. And I've had contested races. And I would come in and tell every agency, you're either going to modernize, reduce, or both. We have to modernize state government. I'd also focus on revitalizing our rural communities, whether it's the downtown buildings that are slowly crumbling into the earth or bringing back small manufacturing. And the last thing is the appraisal process and truly address property tax reform. Richard Carlson taught me if you want to do property tax reform, it takes two things, consensus and a Republican governor. I can give that to you. Modernize, revitalize, reduce.
Mr. Masterson, 30 seconds to close.
Yeah, great. It was great to be here tonight, and as incredibly honored as I am to have President Trump's endorsement in this race. I'm going to spend every day earning the endorsement of the Kansas people. Where as much as I want to make President Trump proud, I want to make you more proud in what I do as a governor. And when I'm governor, I will wake up every day trying to make your life more prosperous and safe. Please vote for me on August 4th. And God bless you, and God bless the great state of Kansas.
Ms. O'Hara, 30 seconds to close.
Thank you. I'm running to be your governor to turn Topeka upside down. We need to be focused on serving the people instead of the big moneyed interest with all of the tax incentives that we are giving away. Reduce our spending, really reduce our spending, and abolish property taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Sarnecki, 30 seconds.
To everyone out there tonight, we have a choice to make, and the contrast could not be more stark. You have the ultimate insider, 20-year career politician, and the outside business leader and job creator. I believe that we need transformational change in the state of Kansas. And I'm respectfully asking for your vote on August 4th so together we can make that change that's so desperately needed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all our candidates. Great job tonight. Thank you for joining us here. Thanks to Johnson County Community College. Have a great rest of your debate night in Kansas.
The Next Star Media Group is your local election headquarters as you just watched an hour-long debate night in Kansas, the Sunflower State. 4 of the top GOP contenders for governor just took the stage at the Johnson County Community College inside the Midwest Trust Center here in the city of Overland Park. The candidates were Ty Masterson, Philip Sarnicki, Charlotte O'Hara, and Scott Schwab. They all met the requirements of the Kansas Republican Party going into the debate. Of course, the big talker was the fact that President Donald Trump a week ago endorsed State Senate President Ty Masterson from Andover, Kansas. Another big headliner was former Governor Jeff Collier, who announced on Monday he was no longer going to be running in the primary. We have a couple of different guests who join us right now. The first one is Christy Williams, a state House rep from Butler County, the same county as the state Senate president. You knew that Mr. Sarnicki, for instance, and maybe the other candidates were going to go after Ty tonight. How'd you think he did?
Well, I think he did great, and I think we have a great options for the state of Kansas and lots of choices for Kansans. And bottom line, I know Ty Masterson very well, and I think he would represent our state very well. And we have. He mentioned the $1 billion that we've cut every single year. That includes property tax. The reason we can't feel it is there's still a lot of spending at the local level. We want to partner with our locals on that issue.
What do you think that Ty Masterson needs to do to increase voter base in eastern Kansas? That seems to be the part of the state that he knows the least.
Well, he's extremely personable. He's very much down to earth. So I think it's just literally getting out there and talking to the people. He's so good at that. He has a genuine heart. And if he does that, then people will feel comfortable with him and they can talk about the details of the issues. Because, yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement. And I would agree. But at the same time, I think he's the best man for the job.
Christy, thank you. John Holt is up on stage after the hour-long debate. John, great job.
Thank you. I think I belong there rather than up here, but we do have somebody who was up here. We're going to try to visit with our governor candidates tonight. Fabian Shepard, Mike Kuckelman is with me, Scott Schwab as well. Mr. Schwab, there was a sort of a prevailing thought that Masterson, Sarnicki would go back and forth and that you could play the statesman. Do you felt that was that your strategy going into tonight, knowing that might be the case?
Well, it's who I am. Just be you. Don't be a poser. Be who you are. And I'm a person that likes to keep the fight on the back porch, not the front porch. That's why we have Democrat governors, is because we shoot each other. It's like in a circle and just shoot each other, as opposed to, what's your idea? I don't think there's any question in this debate today. I was the one who actually provided ideas, as opposed to phrases like we need to look into. We've audited the daylights out of the state. We don't need to just do more audits. One time we had 3 studies on efficiency. Audit's not the issue. You actually have to do the things.
Fabian?
You know what, Scott, I thought it was really interesting that you answered that transportation question with a great deal of specificity. And you called to attention some of the problems, some of those issues at hand, 50 highway coming out of Liberal and Western Kansas and access out there. I don't know that the rest of Kansas is as concerned about 69 and that toll road as the candidates that were on the stage tonight are. What do you think? Could you expand on that a little bit more?
So the Highway 69, the foundation was going bad. So it's only good for so many years. You have to tear it up and completely relay it down. The state didn't want to do it. Overland Park needed it done, so they tried this experiment where they would have a toll lane that would go to Overland Park, and that would help pay for the restructuring of the highway of a partnership between the state and Overland Park. And they're right. There's not too many people driving down that thing. But the highway had to be redone. It is a major artery for this area. And right now, Johnson County is the main economic driver, so you have to give them the highways they need. But you can't do it without honestly understanding with the complexities of grain trucks going down roads 55, 60 miles an hour with no shoulder. That's got to be a priority going forward.
All right, Scott, thank you for coming up and visiting with us. Best of luck along the campaign trail. Thanks for taking part tonight. Appreciate you.
Hey, appreciate you.
Scott Schwab, candidate for governor. And we're going to see if we can round up another one to join us here on stage. In the meantime, Mike, as a former GOP chair, what was your assessment of the conversation up here on the stage tonight?
Well, like we talked about before the debate, I think we all predicted it. There were two candidates who attacked each other quite a bit, and that gave Secretary Schwab an opportunity to look more statesmanlike. I'm hoping before the next debate, all the candidates will be well prepared in detail about what they would do for Kansans. I continue to hear problems about property tax. People are very concerned about property tax. I would really like to hear someone give a detailed plan when they talk about property tax, rather than pointing fingers at one another as to why we don't have it. It doesn't matter. The past is the past. Tell us how you're going to fix it going forward. That's what voters want to hear.
That's true. The number one thing that everybody in Kansas talks about and wanted to see get done did not get done. So that's a matter of serious concern.
Well, we promised another candidate, and we're joined now by Phil Sarnicki from Johnson County. Good to have you here on the stage with us.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about, it's clear, and this was kind of what I think a number of people were expecting, that you and Senator Masterson would spend time going back and forth. Was that your strategy going into this? I mean, you're focusing on career politicians.
Yeah. Well, the strategy, first of all, if you go back and watch the debate, there's nothing personal. I don't have any personal issues with Ty. This is all about his record. This is about his voting record. This is about his record of leadership, or should I say the lack thereof. He has been in office for over 20 years, for over 2 decades. And I just think we need a fundamental change. There are so many states now that have governors who had never run for office prior to running before. People like Glenn Youngkin and Bill Lee and Governor Stitt and Pillen and Burgum. I mean, all these folks. Look up what just happened in Iowa with Zach Lane. And I met with Zach in my office last year. We had a conversation about him potentially running. And you had the outsider business leader, Maha endorsed, running against the career politician Trump endorsed. That sounds very, very eerily similar to what's going on here.
But Kansas, as you know, has not really taken to outsiders. I think that you have to go all the way back to 1975 when Bob Bennett, an attorney, was elected governor. You're sort of against the tide there, aren't you?
No, I think I'm against maybe the historical tide in Kansas, but not the tide of what's going on around the country right now. If you look at all these governors, there were a dozen governors that had never run for office. Look at Vivek Ramaswamy, just won in Ohio. Did you see what happened in South Dakota? The outside business person just beat the incumbent governor in the Republican primary. I mean, this is going on all over the country because people are sick and tired of career politicians and politics as usual. All I want to do is have Ty own his record, own his voting record, own the things like property taxes that haven't happened, even though he finds property tax relief for everybody else other than the people of the state of Kansas.
Mike? Well, on the note of property tax, because that is a big issue in Kansas, what would you do for Kansans if you were elected governor in terms of property tax? And how would you transform your private industry CEO leadership into being the CEO of the state as governor?
Well, first of all, I believe that leadership, I had a great coach one time, and she used to be head of worldwide leadership development for Arthur Andersen, and she used to say all the time that leadership is defined by results. Leadership is defined by results. And that's all I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting results, whether it's property tax, whether it's income tax, whether it's spending, whatever it may be. I mean, education. I mean, our education is a horrific problem right now. We spent more money last year on education than we have ever spent in the history of the state of Kansas, and we got the worst test results that we've ever gotten. And I'm sorry, your other question. Oh, property taxes?
Well, it was about the property taxes, and within that answer, how would you transform yourself from being a leader, a CEO of private industry, to being the CEO of the state as governor?
Well, I don't really think I have to transform myself that much. One of the questions I get a lot, people say, well, how are you going to work with the legislature? You know, how are you going to, you've been hard on the, I haven't been hard on the legislature. I have state senators who essentially ties their boss that have publicly endorsed me. And then I have a lot of legislators and senators behind the scenes who haven't publicly supported me because they are dying for leadership. They're dying for leadership right now, and I believe that's what I bring to the table as somebody that's run his own businesses for over 30 years, been a CEO for the last 20 plus years. It's about getting results, and that's what I'm going to do as governor.
I think we see where we're headed here. You're going to keep each other on task and focus on your records and different viewpoints. But
well,
at the end of the day,
the only thing I would say, John, I do want one thing. This baloney about whatever $800,000 to Democrats, that is a bold-face lie.
All right, well,
that's a
you
lie.
clarified that on
yeah,
stage.
that is very different than me calling out somebody for their actual voting record.
Here's my question. At the end of the day, let's say, and I know you signed the unity pledge, right, to be a part of this debate. If Ty Masterson is elected, will you endorse him? Can you support him?
Oh, yeah. I will.
And I'll ask him the same question.
Yeah. I'll support Ty if he wins. I don't want a Democrat in there. I don't. Now, I believe we need transformational change. I believe we need an outsider. I believe we need a business leader and a CEO. You know, I was watching Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, a few months ago at a meeting, and he said this. This is a direct quote. So, by the way, if you don't know Bill in Tennessee crushing it, by the way, economically, growth, everything that you could possibly imagine. And Bill Lee had never run for office prior to running for governor. He's an outsider, he's a business owner, he was a CEO, and he told the story of going out and meeting with the In-N-Out Burger executives in California because they were tired of the regulations, the taxes, et cetera. And he talked about that meeting, and guess where In-N-Out's headquarters is now? It's in Franklin, Tennessee. And this is what Bill Lee said, direct quote. He said, understanding business as a governor matters, quote unquote.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time joining us post-debate.
Yeah.
Best of luck along the campaign trail.
John.
We'll see you along the way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Good to see you. Thank you. Good to see you.
We're going to check back in the old spin room here with our friend Jonathan Ketz. He has someone he's standing by with. John?
Hi there, John. Hey, we have Sue Huff here, who is the chairwoman of the Johnson County, Kansas Republican Party. I appreciate you joining us. Philip Sarnicki just got done talking with Mr. Holt out there. How do you think this debate went when it comes to messaging that voters got out of this? There was a lot of back and forth between Ty and Phil. Do you think that voters learned a lot about the four candidates tonight?
I do think they got something out of it. I know I did. I appreciated the fact that they kind of laid their plans out a little more than they had in January when they first started. So I think the voters hopefully got some good information from each candidate so that they can make a better choice.
Is there one thing that each of these, three of these candidates are from Johnson County, one is from Butler. I mean, what do each of the three Johnson County candidates need to do, because it has been so long since a governor has been from Johnson County?
I think just keeping their message out there and laying out their plan. I think that's important for the voters to know, because they need to differentiate themselves between the other people in the candidate pool so that they can help the voters decide.
Sue, we appreciate you joining us really quickly here. Thank you very much. John, I know you have Charlotte O'Hara up on stage. We'll send it back on over to you inside of the theater.
We do, and I noticed earlier today, Charlotte O'Hara joins us now, that you mentioned that it was going to be you against the guys. Boy, this will be fun. Did you have fun up here?
I had a ball. It was just fantastic. I figured, 3 guys and 1 woman, that should be a fair fight. And I think that it came off fine.
All right, well, happy to hear you say that. Fabian?
Charlotte, on taxes and spending, we know right now that the general fund, more than 50% of it goes to fund K-12 education. And on taxes and spending, when John asked that question, you said you would close the Kansas Department of Education.
I would. I mean, I think that we have to stop nibbling around the edges on education. This federalization of education has been an absolute failure for our children. That's brought us Common Core, social emotional learning. Every student succeeds. It just doesn't work. And we need local control, because what works in Johnson County, it's not what is needed in liberal Kansas. I mean, it just, there are different needs in different parts of the state. If we actually stop taking the federal funds because compliance eats up those dollars, and close the State Department of Education, because all they are is paper shufflers. They do nothing for the education in the classroom. I'm a homeschooler. I have a degree in education, but I homeschooled my two youngest daughters. It is not difficult to create a curriculum. It just isn't. So and I'll give you an example. We're spending $50 million a year to have Greenbush and Girard create our curriculum. Not all of it, but $50 million. That's ridiculous.
Mike, do you have any thoughts or questions?
Well, while we're on the topic of education, let's talk a bit about school choice. So you talk about being a homeschooler. Where do you fall on the school choice? You say it's not difficult to develop a curriculum, but I'm concerned, are there people out in the state that it is difficult for them? Maybe they don't have the ability that you have. What should be done in terms of school choice?
There are so many opportunities to access curriculum if you need to have a built-in curriculum. I just simply built my own. And I had so much fun. Our kids had so much fun. And I'll just give you an example. My daughter, she came to community college when she was 15. She aced the test so that she didn't have to take Comp 1. So she went directly to Comp 2. I mean, this is not, the thing of it is that we need to focus on the children instead of indoctrination. We need to be educating them instead of indoctrinating them. And you put the control at the local level, and school choice, it's fool's gold, because if you take the state's money, the control is going to follow. Just look what we've have happened in taking federal dollars. We have to have Common Core, so we have our numbers in boxes, which totally confuses the kids, and that's why they can't add and subtract. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Quick on incentives. I know that's a big deal for you. You're not a big fan of them, and we can focus on the Chiefs deal. The Commerce Secretary, current Lieutenant Governor David Tolan, says, at the end of the day, the benefits will outweigh the costs. Star bonds are backed by private investors, and there may be some local infrastructure costs involved, but at the end of the day, the benefits will outweigh the costs. You don't believe him.
That's the big lie in tax incentives. And I've told you, for 40 years we have tried this, and the theory, hey, I'm from the construction industry. I understand why developers want to use them, because it reduces their costs. Bankers love it because it reduces the risk. And then you and we get to pick up the tab. The taxpayers' money is going to be paying off those star bonds. It's going to be approximately $6 billion, including interest. And they say, oh, your taxes aren't going to increase, but it's going to be the increase in the amount of sales taxes that's going to go to the state and at the local level. Where do you think that money is going to come from to backfill the costs?
Well, the Commerce Department would take exception to that, and they point to Prairie Fire, which, of course, as you mentioned rightly, not here, but I've heard you say it defaulted. They just redid the bonds. They renegotiated the bonds. Taxpayers were not on the lam for that.
I call that prairie not on fire.
Well, I'm not sure the Merrills would agree with you, but that's another point. Anyway, yes, go ahead. Hang on, go ahead.
Charlotte, and I understand your position on that. Could you think of a time or a case when businesses should be offered any incentives?
You know, the free market works. We have just given up on the free market. Do you know where the public-private partnership came from?
No.
Italy in the 1920s. Mussolini. And then FDR brought it over to the States in the 1930s. And then we passed the economic development thing in 1986, and that just opened the door. We were already doing some of it. Let the market work. I'll give you an example. Sonano out at New Century Airport, the Johnson County Commission, I was the only commissioner who vote no, gave Sonano a property tax abatement. They paid only 30 cents a square foot on their brand new 333,000 square foot building. If you had a 2,000 square foot house, that would be $600 a year. That's how sweet of a deal that was. And do you know what? It has been nearly 3 years since that incentive was given, and that building is empty. Sonano never moved into it. It's a Chinese company. They never moved into it.
Charlotte O'Hara, thank you. Thanks for being with us on stage and in the debate as well.
It was a delight.
Thank
you.
Thank you for coming in. Appreciate you being here. Guys, let's continue our discussion here. What moment stood out for you, Mike? Anything?
Well, the one moment that stood out was when they were talking about the Chiefs deal, because I'm trying to understand whether the Chiefs deal is a good or a bad deal for Kansas. And I know, listening to Ty Masterson, he says it is a good deal. Phil Sarnacki started to say that it was a bad deal, but he also said it remains to be seen. And I kind of agree with his latter statement, that it remains to be seen. I don't know that anybody really knows the absolute answer on that, but I was interested to hear when he made that. It really stood out to me. It does remain to be seen is probably the correct answer.
Let's bring John Ketz back in. He has a guest in the spin room. It's debate night in Kansas. John.
Hey there, John. We have Mark Hamill here, the former Johnson County Community College trustee, joining us. Mark, you told us that you're supporting Ty Masterson in the GOP primary.
Correct.
Tell me why.
So last year, I actually spent time interviewing every single candidate for the job. I really try to take pride in the fact that I really try to know what's going on, the ins and outs, and not just the sound bites. I think it's really important. And after interviewing everybody, talking to a lot of their spouses and their families and their staff, I ended up going with Ty, and I've been thrilled with the process ever since.
That is from somebody who is from Johnson County as opposed to South Central Kansas. I mean, what stood out to you about Ty, maybe more so than the other 3, 4, or 5 candidates in the race?
I'd say the number one thing is the unity that he brings to the party. He's really focused on bringing people together. I heard multiple people in the Senate and the House have told me how he works with everybody, even the ones he disagrees with. He gives them the respect going through that process. And some of the other candidates in particular, I feel like aren't going to do the same thing.
All right, we have Masterson up on stage again. Mark, thank you. John Holt, we will send it back on over to you.
All right, John Ketz, thank you very much. And we're 4 for 4 on candidates tonight. Senator, thanks for joining us on stage. So we had Phil
there was a rumor I
Sarnacki.
wasn't coming.
No. We settled that. You were here, and we appreciate that. You made that clear. And you're here on stage with us. Phil Sarnacki spent some time with us here post-debate, and he said the focus needs to be on the fact that you have a record, and it's a record that is not a good one. You've not been able to get property tax relief through. There's some other things he's talked about. It's your turn to answer. He's tired of career politicians. Take it from there.
Well, he's sure acting like one. I mean, that's what a typical politician would do, is tear the other guy down at the knees. I've got a record. If you think the things we've done on life, on Second Amendment, I'm endorsed by KFL, our A grading with the NRA, we've lowered taxes, we've saved our girls' sports, we've stopped trans surgeries on kids. I mean, the list goes on and on of what we've been able to accomplish. So if you think that's a disaster, I mean, I'm probably not your guy. Go vote for a Democrat.
I didn't hear you say that in the debate, though. You just ticked off a great list of things that you say you've done.
You only gave me 15 seconds,
well,
John.
I had someone in my ear.
And I hope you caught that I didn't initiate any of that. There was not one thing that I initiated.
So your strategy was not to respond directly.
Because it's division. It's dividing. We need a united party. The opposition is not on this stage. The opposition is the Democrats.
Mike?
Well, when you bring up unity, the question has to be asked to every candidate. If you were not the nominee in August, would you unify and support the Republican nominee for governor?
I would, because any Republican's better than a Democrat. I mean, to be quite frank. I mean, on any issue, right? I mean, there's a couple of them there that I would hold my own nose to vote for, but it is better than the alternative.
The home crowd liked your answer there.
They should. Thank you.
Fabian? So you did tick off quite a few things there. And I did hear you talk about the $1 billion in tax cuts and savings for the people. So Philip Sarnacki, obviously, he mentioned that you had made a call to him.
Which is, I don't know where that came from. because I did not make that call to him, but I didn't want to call him out on a lie either. Where hesitations, I don't know if somebody in the party apparatus was trying to feel him out for something like that before they came to me. That might be true, but I did not, and by the way, would not have offered him that spot.
Lieutenant Governor.
That's
just
what was insinuated. Yeah. That was also
So obviously,
not true.
Philip is demonstrated. He's a brilliant guy. Very few people have achieved what he's done in business, and a sharp guy. And as you just said, you would support him if he were the nominee.
I would. It's a struggle. I mean, he didn't vote in any Republican primary at all. He hasn't. That's one thing the Trump people pointed out. They knew Philip had never voted for President Trump in any primary because he didn't show up.
So I wanted to ask you this, because this was the moment that stood out the most for me in the debate. Angry Elf.
That's probably something I should.
I didn't have that on my bingo card.
I watched the movie Elf recently, so it was just the little guy got real angry at the end, and I probably shouldn't have. That it was just what popped into my head, and that gets me in trouble sometimes. I say things that I shouldn't have, but that was just in my head and it came out of my mouth. It wasn't actually meant to be a slight on him. It was more about his emotional state at the time.
Top of mind, obviously it came out, but here we are, first televised debate. We've got a couple of months left before the August primary. How heated is this going to get as we get closer to August 4th? And is it just going to be you two? What about Scott Schwab, Charlotte O'Hara? I mean, the sense is, the conventional wisdom is, you two are trying to make it a two-man race.
Well, I don't think it is a two-man race. I think he's very upset at what happened with the Trump. And he's got a lot of money, so he can make it that way. You know, he can spend a bunch of money trying to turn it into something it's not. I want unity. I don't ever plan to attack Phil, and I won't. I will respond when he attacks me, but I don't ever plan to attack him. I don't attack others. The one Republican candidate that I do feel comfortable going after, and that's Vicky, because I think she has a very different view about politics than I do.
Disappointed she wasn't on stage?
Very disappointed, because that's who I really want to debate.
All right.
Ty, how do you think the rumor got started that you weren't going to appear?
I think goes back to all the political consultant class, right, where there was a lot of recommendations of, hey, this is a small group of people going to see it. It's going to be, you don't have any value in being there. But in the end, when I'm hearing this noise, so it's actually most of them counseled that way. But I said, but that's not my brand. I've been fighting for my family and my neighbors and my friends all this time, and so to no-show something like that, I think is a bad idea. So we got here and did it. I knew I was going to take that. I knew that was going to happen.
For the record, it may have been a small live audience on a Friday night, but it'll be posted for folks to watch on all of our platforms, all of the stations across the state of Kansas. Debate night in Kansas. There are no excuses. You have a chance to see it. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me out.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you along the way.
All right, guys, we got a couple minutes left here. Just get your final thoughts here as we wrap up on our little post-debate show.
Well, I thought it was a great debate for a first debate of these candidates. I look forward to watching in the future to see more debates. Again, I'm hoping to hear in the next debate more detail on policy, what they will deliver as governor. I could do with a fewer attacks. I understand Senator Masterson's point that and I made a note that Sarnacki did immediately attack him from the get-go, and I suppose his point is he had to defend himself. I'm hoping that will go away in the next round, and we can hear real meat on the bone policy, what they will deliver to us as Kansans and taxpayers.
Yeah, more substance. That would be nice. And there were a few things that I heard tonight that I wasn't sure how they're going to work. Phil said he would cut income tax and property tax.
I asked him about that.
How are you going to pay for education? I don't know how that's going to work. I'd love to hear him explain it, because I'm sure he's got an answer to the question.
There may be other opportunities along the way, and that's with each forum or debate or whatever, you want to try to move the ball forward a little bit. We tried to do that tonight. I think we succeeded in some ways. Other ways we didn't. You don't want them falling back on their talking points, right? You want to get away from that, and that's what we hope to see down the line.
And I think that Scott Schwab actually looked very good this evening.
Both of you talked about that on our pre-debate show, and I think he tried to do that. So anyway, guys, thank you. Fabian Shepard, Mike Kuckelman, our two Republican experts. My name is John Holt. I'm an expert at nothing except saying good night, or as we said at the end of the debate, have a great debate night in Kansas. Thank you.